workers right-based movement, sex workers movement do consider that yes, there is violence in sex work, but entire sex work is not violence. There are exploitative practices definitely are there in sex work, but entire sex work is not exploitation. So that becomes the difference of opinion. And so another part which was quite a recent debate when it comes to the Dalit movement in India. They consider sex work as purely caste based and as caste based violence. So at many instances they differ and go against the sex workers right based movements. The recent debate, I think few of you might be quite aware, which happened in Nagpur in Maharashtra, where the the open expression of a sex worker leader was completely denied by the Dalit feminists who were present at that meeting. Even they refused to take the contribution which was openly asked for that particular event. And it was a very difficult situation and very debatable kind of. Uh, the entire debate started from that place, like um, whether sex work is a caste based violence, caste based kind of thing, and who is leading who. That question was also become very prominent during that particular incidents, because the Dalit feminists, they started blaming the leaders, the feminist leaders who are actually leading the sex worker movement in India. They started questioning their leadership, because they are saying that you are from mainstream, you are family women, you are educated, and you are from upper class, and how you can engage with the sex workers movement in a leadership position. So who is leading who? That becomes a big debate. It's still going on, and it creates more complexities in the entire alliance building, which sex workers collectives are trying to build with the mainstream feminist groups, and even with different women's organizations. So that's still a challenge which we are trying to get over. So Tapa, the next. So I think I have covered most of it. Polarization of ideologies, as I say, it's very much there. One interesting thing when we deal with different platforms around discussing the issues of women along with sex workers, three terms create the difference more visible. Agency, choice, and consent. These three terms are at the core of any feminist scholarship and understanding of agency of being a woman. And it is getting challenged because most of feminists and activists and leaders, they consider that sex workers do not have that agency to take the decisions, to make their life choices, whereas the sex workers leaders, the organizations and collectives, they believe that sex workers do have right to consent. So that entire tussle becomes so visible, and it really leaves very small ground for both the groups to come together, because it is always treated as violence, and sex workers are disempowered group, and so they don't have the agency to do their choices in life. So when we speak about voluntary entry into sex work, the question is always asked that whether they are happy into that, whether it is their conscious choice, and whether sex workers, being victims of trafficking, do they have that agency to make choices. So this debate seems sometimes never ending to us, but that's a very important debate which we should engage into it. So, and yeah, so that's happening. There are some instances and responses the sex workers movement got from the mainstream feminist movement, is that sex work is a legal issue, is to do with HIV/AIDS, and it's a public health issue. So why the women's organizations, other women's organizations, not sex workers, but other women organizations should get engaged into it. And most of the leaders still believe that sex work is completely a legal thing, and because it is associated completely with trafficking, so getting the feminist organizations their support to the decriminalization agenda of sex workers movement is really becoming very very limited. Very few feminist leaders are getting engaged into this constant fight for decriminalization, which is open, um, on behalf of the sex workers in India. So that's a big challenge which we're constantly fighting with. uh, Sudha, please next. Yeah, so sex workers movement and its understanding of sex work is bit different, not exactly opposite to the women's groups or the feminist movement, but it is mostly we have done our entire journey from HIV prevention to the right based approach. We firmly believe in human right foundation. Human rights become the core of our understanding of sex work as a profession, and giving understanding the agency of the women, the sex workers, apart from their gender identities. Considering sex work as work has become an integral part of the sex workers movement. Considering sex work as labor, and this the recent discussion which we are having in the sex workers movement is whether to consider sex work as work, because it has become quite a debatable thing, as it is very difficult because of the legal structure in India to establish the worker relationship, the employee employer relationship, because of the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act, which is very prominently used against sex workers, criminalizing sex work and sex workers, where they have addressed third party as criminal entity. And if we really want to establish this worker and employer and employee relationship, it is very difficult to fit into that kind of understanding. So the discussion which is happening in the sex worker movement in India is to change our gears, whether to say sex work as work, or whether we should address sex work as service providers, so that entire discussion is happening. So after maybe few months or year, you may start getting the terms which we are using, not sex work as work, but we are saying that sex workers are providers of sexual services, so this service provision has become our discussion now. And that is going to give some different understanding towards the sex workers engagement with the policy and the decriminalization demand which we are putting. So the same points which we can say the connections and differences, because still we are struggling with the definition of sex work, what to how to address sex workers, sex work or prostitution, it's still going on. Conflation of sex work and trafficking, those becomes a very firm ground of differences of opinion. Choice and consent, I think we have discussed. Patriarchy, women are challenging a lot, but they don't consider sex workers also do challenge patriarchy, like they are asking the uh, very primary questions of entire sex and sexuality approach the Indian mentality have in our cultural setup, the questions are around morality and everything. They're challenging it, so, and to accept that difference, accept that question, I think that needs to be done, and that is not happening so easily here. So that's the, yeah. And there are few possibilities of getting connected with the mainstream feminist movement and women's organization, women rights organization, is to discuss about the legal framework and how the exploitation is happening under that legal framework, the lawmakers and law providers, how they are misusing the law against sex workers. And about the discussion about the exploitative practices in sex work, I think those can be some common grounds where the sex workers movement and the feminist movement can connect with each other, and there are several possibilities of collaboration and alliance building among both the movements. I think, Sutapa, the last slide which I want to. So these could be common grounds, because all of us, we speak about human rights and how human right violation is affecting the women and the different genders in India. So gender equity could be one thing. LGBTQM movement is, now we can see there are some association and some alliance building happening in sex workers movement. Even the national network of sex workers is the only network where we have sex workers of all genders and their organization as members of the collective, members of the network. So that is happening. Association with labor movements, I think that is also one thing which sex workers organizations are trying to do. We are also having discussions to have to form the unions, not like similar to trade union, sex workers union. So that discussion is also going on. One common agenda which can bring the feminist movement and the sex workers movement together is the citizenship rights, because most of the marginalized women are not able to get the basic rights as a citizen. So that could be a common ground where there is a good possibility of alliance building. And yeah, so we need to find out the right time, right platform, and right kind of language to get associated with each other. I think that's the main thing which we really need to evolve and develop consciously. And that's very necessary. It's very necessary to get connected and work together. Otherwise, the challenges are going to remain like that, forever. So yeah, so I think I will stop here. I think I have taken much more time than given to me, and so yeah.
Thank you very much, Tejasvi. I think that was a very important discussion. Um, I'm very happy that you touched upon this, various points of contention, that between the feminist movement and the sex workers movement, something, which we have been talking for years together, and very interestingly, the nuanced kind of understanding of the overlaps and the disconnect is something that I think we need to think through. We need to talk, continuously. Um, and as you rightly pointed out, the because I think, but I sincerely feel that the Indian feminism movement has come a long way, and they have really kind of been much more accommodative, in various ways than ever. And we know that that sex workers movements are, I mean, the very fact that they are kind of talking, they are now talking about similar issues.
Yes.
They are being seen in similar platforms is a hope. And and it's also a result of long years of struggle, from both sides, I feel. So yeah, I think this is a very important. I definitely agree with you when you talk about that the sex workers lived experience is very different from the lived experiences of many feminists, and maybe that also creates some kind of an hurdle in accommodating the concerns. And yeah, um, so yeah, overall, I think, yeah, I mean, these are, I think, and this is a time, I think, when and it is the right time when we should talk about alliance building, when
Yes.
various groups should come together, and like put their points across. And yeah, so thank you very much. I would also like to thank Sharda here. I was not the one who was working with changing the slides. It was my colleague Sharda. So Sharda, thank you very much. Now I open the floor for question answer and any comments. Any one of you have. Please
Yeah.
feel free to raise your hand and speak up. I'll take your questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, Shivanti.
Yeah, if I may. So, Darshan, thank you so much for this wonderful talk. I was really looking forward to hearing you. So, my fieldwork is actually based with Durbar, Mohila Samanna Committee in Kolkata. So, and yeah, your talk really resonates with a lot of my fieldwork as well.
Mm.
I just have a couple of comments to make, and I was hoping you can help me understand a bit more. I mean, first, I'm really curious to know about the shift in the service from worker to service provider, because I'm not sure
Mm.
Durbar is yet talking about that. But you also know Durbar just had a tremendous setback
Yeah.
with the death of Dr.
Dr.
Jana,
Jana. Mm.
which, as you can imagine, it has left a huge vacuum. And I have
Yeah.
not personally been able to go back.
Mm.
But given my contacts with them, I have not yet seen a lot of focus on service providers. It still seems to be the rights-based, worker-based. So
Mm.
that's one question. I'm very curious to know that. And the second is more about my observations in my field. When you talk about the heteronormative family as the way to think about mainstream feminism and rehabilitation of women and a focus on domestic violence, I totally agree with you on that. But in my fieldwork, I've also noticed that there is also a rather strong longing amongst the sex workers in Shonagati
Mm.
for a domestic life, right? I mean, there is a phenomena of the babus, which I'm
Yeah.
guessing you're very
Yeah.
familiar with. So the
Yes.
babus are not exactly the husbands, right? They're not
Yeah.
legally the husbands, but they are the husbands. They're socially
Correct.
the husbands.
Correct.
And a lot of the women actually take a lot of pride in wearing the symbols of marriage, such
Mm.
as shidur and pola and shaka and all of that.
Mm.
And that's something, though my work does not exactly focus on these rituals of everyday domesticity, but I have not seen that they take a lot of pride in actually donning that symbols and putting on shidur every day after they take a shower, putting on the shaka pala, which they will never remove. And there was one instance where a babu had left one of the sex workers, which is rather common. But then to remove the Paula and Shaka, or to not wear the Shidur, was a very traumatizing experience. It almost like she was facing widowhood. So, and I'm wondering, how you bring that into your fold of, that moving away from the heteronormative patriarchal family, but at the same time, sex workers, in my experience, actually have a very pretty strong longing for that kind of family. So, yes,
Mm.
thank you.
Mm. 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 So, yeah, the first thing which you said, that's what I mentioned, that using this um, concept of service provision of sexual services, this is a very recent kind of discussion. Not I think not even 3 months old now. It's that recent. We are discussing it just few months time. So it is very recent, and I don't think that all the organizations working with sex workers are engaging with this kind of use of this term. So it may take time, and we don't know whether all, because again, in sex workers movement, there are differences, like feminist movement, among the sex workers movement also, we have differences of opinion, but the ultimate aim of all the organizations who are working with sex workers is decriminalization. So we try to fit everything going to that, to achieve decriminalization. So that becomes the main agenda for now. I think you might be aware that the split took place between the two networks, NNSW and IINSW. So that happens, and that keep on happening. The differences are going to be there. So, but the discussions which lead to decriminalization, that also becomes very obvious. So this particular term which I just mentioned is very, very recent, not even more than 3 months old, which I can say. So this will take place. So that is one thing. the second thing which about you speak about the family and the longing of women in sex work to have their families, that's very visible. I do agree with it, but ultimately why they get that feeling of being a husband and wife relationship is mainly to get their longing is not just for the family, but the longing is more to do with the acceptance of the mainstream society, because mainstream society believes completely on the structure of the family. So that is also needs to understand when we say stigma, and we very easily use the term internalization of stigma, and so if we keep that person into that phase, but why that happens, why the person internalize that stigma also, because the society expect that person to do that. Similarly, this is what my experience says. And why we say that they challenge patriarchy, not just because this could be contradictory to the experiences which sex workers are sharing, being in relationship, having a husband figure in their lives, and following exactly what a married woman can do in her family and her married life, but when it comes to decision making, when it comes to if something happens, if that fellow will leave, they can go for another man, that is also very visible. It may be different for different individuals, it may be different from place to place, but you can see it very very common, the decision making about what to do with that fellow, whether to give money to him or not. The entire economic control, mostly the women are having in their hand, which you will not see in the typical patriarchal structure. Whether to give birth to a child from that particular man, that decision also the sex workers are taking. In that sense, we can say they are definitely challenging the typical patriarchal norms which our society follows. So you will definitely find all those layers into the picture which we can see in front of our eyes when it comes to sex workers. So lot of things. I hope I tried to answer.
Yes, Tejashi, thank you so much. In fact, in Shonagachi, there are two kinds of babus. The sex workers categorize them as denewala and khanewala. So
Exactly.
they're very aware of
So many women in Pune, they do have dene wala, khane wala, pyar wala, shadi wala, all those kind of things, and they are very clear about that. Very very clear about that. So, and they have exact place for that particular man at that place. Nobody can replace that position. So it's very clear.
Are there any more questions? Yeah. Yes, Prabha, please go ahead. Yeah.
Thanks, Shilpa. Thanks, Tejasvi, for such a fantastic presentation. It was really, really rich and lots to think about. And so, but some of the things you said, I wanted to get some clarification on. One was, your discussion about the transition from, HIV prevention to rights-based approach to a development approach. And I'm just curious about what you mean by the development approach. On the face of it, seems like a sort of social justice approach, but I'm curious about what the work of development is in that context. The second question I had was about feminist leadership. I just wondered who you were thinking of, because the feminist field is very amorphous. It's very hard to actually say, who's leading the movement. I mean, do we mean this in terms of, those who are sitting in Delhi and walking the corridors of power, or is it, some other kinds of leadership patterns? And I also wondered, in terms of, abolitionism, which is something that we have to grapple with, all the time in India. I just wondered whether there are certain states in which they are much more resonant and find a deeper foothold than in other parts of the country. And I just wondered, can you, or presumably, maybe you have the the bare bones of abolitionism in every state, but the way it gets filled out locally and the discourses that fill it up are quite different, and culturally there's a lot of variation. I'm just curious
Yeah.
about whether you can talk about these different cultures of abolitionism and what is it that you see in a state like Maharashtra, for example. Even that may be generalizing because it may be very different from what's happening in Sangli.
Yeah. 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 Yes, thank you. I will try my best to. Okay, so what was the first thing you mentioned?
It's the rights-based development approach.
Yeah, because this is very interesting conversation which we are going through, and you know what is happening in the sex workers groups recently is not only this fight of decriminalization, but we are also trying to fit in somewhere. So if we are saying right base, and if especially I don't want to say anything anti-government right now, because I'm very much afraid. So if I say right based approach, and if I started that kind of language, it becomes very difficult even to reach out to the current leadership. I'm talking about in the government and in who are in the rule. So the entire conversation is going through that phase now, and this might be a temporary phase, we don't know. But this is the thing which we are discussing, debating also, that we believe in the right based approach, but now we are somewhere getting adapted to use the development approach rather than right based. Like we are handling the citizenship issues, we are handling, we are trying to address inclusive policies, women's policies, inclusion of sex workers into it, COVID relief, all those things. We are somewhere keeping one foot back when we are saying right based approach. We are focusing at present mainly on this development approach, and the how we can go with and especially even with this anti-trafficking law, which is a hanging sword on our head right now. We are very curious to, and we are very concerned to see that all those issues are getting addressed into that law. If that law becomes as it is, like how they're proposing it, if it comes like that, then the entire sex work and whatever right based approach we are shouting and yelling and everything, it's going to be nowhere, because they are trying their best to put everything into trafficking. There is no scope, not a single, you know tiny scope to say sex work, voluntary sex work, and all those kind of things. So we have changed that language. I think we have tried to be little bit sober, maybe adapting to the current regime, and that could be temporary. I really don't know, because I don't have the exact answer to this, right now. But this is our strategy we are trying to address, how to get into that, because we don't want to get isolated from the changes which are happening in our country regarding the law, the legal system, and even the policies. So that's how we are trying to gear up with that, by changing the definition. That's all. Yeah, I hope I'm sound little bit maybe irrational to you, but that's how we are trying to adapt. We don't have any other choice but to adapt ourselves to this. So that is the answer. Second thing,
It's for the
about
feminist leadership.
the feminist leadership. Uh, yeah, it's I don't know where, because it is local, it is regional, and it is like national. There are three levels of leadership about which I'm sharing my experiences here. Because local level, if I say in Pune and Maharashtra, is a different world. If I say Delhi, is a different world altogether. It's state wise also we face different challenges, and some similar challenges, some differences. And but if we consider, if we go through the entire journey, if we map the feminist leadership and how they are associated with the sex worker movement in India, different layers again. So, and that's true what you say. It's not one leadership in India when we speak about feminist leadership, because it definitely includes policymakers, it definitely includes politicians, it also includes the academicians and the scholars, the activists, the voices of the scholarship. The feminist scholarship is also very important for us because they provide the foundation for the movement. So when we are saying that it's a right based approach which we are following, and we are shifting our language to development of approach, we have learned from the feminist leadership somewhere, because if you really want to sustain and adapt, you need to learn this. So it's different kind of leadership which we can see here. And like, as I say, activists, academicians, people working on the ground, decision makers, all sorts of feminist leadership we need. And there are differences. So exact leadership is not concentrated, not even in Pune and Maharashtra or in India. So it is different islands, and so we need to resonate with each other and get along. So that's how it is happening. And the last question I think you asked about the abolitionist and the so-called anti-trafficking lobby. And yeah, again, if you see the typical working of these anti-trafficking groups is very, very prominent in the places where you will see the red light areas, where there are non-brothel sex work is happening. They are not very prominently engaged. Along with these anti-trafficking groups and these typical rescue rehab agenda people, politicians and local builder lobby is also quite active, where the typical red light areas are associated, and they are established there because of the land issue, the land prices, the economy, the way it is going. I think mostly the effect and the prominent presence is felt when where there are big cities and big red light areas. So not much into the places where you will not find brothel base. If you say consider Bangalore for example, it mostly street based sex work. So you will not find all the anti-trafficking groups and NGOs are going and settling down there. They are also working there, but they are not prominently engaged because their main focus is on rescue and rehab. So that's very visible. And the unique example of builder lobby and how it is impacting the red light areas is Mumbai, Kamathipura. I remember there were 17 lanes, in around 95 to 2000, and now the entire Kamathipura has shrunk down to 4 lanes. So that's the reality. And in Pune also we are facing the similar challenges for a few years. Nagpur, it's very visible. So that's the structure. And similarly, it's also happening at GB Road, Delhi. It's regularly happening some or the other way. So yeah, that's the challenge.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
Sutava, may I just ask a follow-up question to this?
Sure, sure.
This is also the land, like the land acquisition and the builder thing is also something very prominent in Sonagachi, as you can already imagine.
Yes.
But there are
Yes.
a lot of rent control brothels there.
Yeah.
Well, that's not exactly what I'm looking in my work, but when I talk to especially the elder sex workers, they actually, if they were to move out of that brothel, they would actually strike a pretty expensive deal with that. But that is really not happening. Like Shonagachi pretty much looks what Shonagachi was, right? You don't have a lot of building happening. Like sex workers are buying flats outside of Shonagachi, that's happening. as an investment property, but I don't, I know, I'm aware of the Kamatikura thing, but I don't see that happening a lot in Shonagachi. But the builders are very predatory. There's no doubt about that. It's because they constantly make the rounds, they're constantly trying to tell the women, but the women are also quite, astute in this sense. And because of the rent control, I think there is an interesting difference there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the shift from brothel to non-brothel setting is also becoming quite common in many parts of India. In Pune also, because it's very visible in Pune because of the entire metro coming in, and Pune's red light area is also in the heart of the city. The entire builder lobby getting very much active, and it's completely connected with politicians here. So their dominance is very, very visible. And we used to have more than 5,000 sex workers in Pune's red light area, but there are around not more than 2,500 now, at present. So we have seen that shift happening without any rent control, without any other thing to do with those kind of issues. And yeah, so it's very complex.
Uh, Tejasvi, I just wanted to ask you one question because I do understand this tension within feminism and also between various sex workers movement. So, do you think that that the abolitionist in some way gets
Hmm.
stronger because of these differences
Yes.
that the feminist group has, or they and the sex workers group have amongst themselves? Do you
Hmm.
think that do you think that like a united front would have kind of created a different picture for the movement, sex workers movement in India? Um, I mean, because what I'm trying to say is that there are, I mean, I do understand the importance of, different voices to be heard. But what I'm trying to um, basically put forth is that does this kind of differentiation, there are different networks
Hmm.
of sex workers, there are and different groups of different feminist groups with
Yeah.
different agenda. Do you think that this kind of differentiation is kind of giving strength to the abolitionist, uh,
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
things could
Because
have been.
see, yeah, because see, when you say, sorry.
Yeah. If
Uh,
there was a united front, I'm saying, I mean, there are so many, there are these two strong networks, and we know that there's a lot of disconnect between them. So do you see that if things were otherwise, things would, I mean, it would have been really be helpful for the sex worker movement, and maybe one could lobby for the sex workers in a much more, in a positive way. Yeah.
yes, certainly. So because see, the this abolitionist movement and the organizations who are working with the abolitionist agenda, they are really very stronger because of the differences which we are having among our own. That's one thing. Another thing, when the understanding of trafficking, because all the feminist leaders have their own perception towards trafficking. See, sex workers movement never promote trafficking, but when we say voluntary entry into sex work, choice and consent and all those things, uh, people believe that somewhere we are not addressing trafficking, but that's not the reality. We need to understand a very important role of sex workers in prevention of trafficking that hardly get understood. Even the feminist leadership is not very much aware about this, and it becomes our duty to make them aware about it. We are also somewhere lagging behind, doing that. You need to understand the role of sex workers because they know what are the source and transit and all those kind of channels of trafficking. They know it very well, and they could be very important people to prevent trafficking, and they are doing it. So to actually make people aware about this is also very important, and that should be our responsibility also. We need to do that, we need to promote that. That is one thing. It is very easy to say, okay, trafficking is illegal, trafficking is immoral, trafficking, I don't know what moral trafficking is, but they call me moral trafficking. So trafficking should not be there. Everybody agrees. And if trafficking is happening, punishment should be there. It's that black and white for people. So that is getting very very supported by the feminist also, whereas the sex workers movement is demanding to decriminalize entire sex work, not just sex workers. We are also have our own understanding about the third party, which is getting very differently colored and criminalized into the law, where all the brothel keepers, pimps, and agents, and the lovers, the partners of sex workers, they are also part of that third party, and which are getting criminalized. So this understanding is also different when it comes to the feminist movement and the sex workers movement. So I think this kind of very genuine and hardcore debates, discussions, and coming up with a common understanding of these concepts, I think that should be the focus. Because what we mean by decriminalization may not be very clear to the feminist understanding of decriminalization. We might be speaking to different things, because we definitely come from our own realities. So I think that those very focused kind of discussions should be there, not just talking about decriminalization, but what we mean by decriminalization. So that is very important. Yes.
Thank you, Tejasvi. Yeah, I think I see no more question, and yeah, okay, is there? Okay. Prabha, do you want to again ask something?
Yeah,
Can't
very
hear you.
quickly, I think just you said something very interesting about alliance building between feminists and sex workers groups, and you talked specifically about exploitation. Could you just give us a few examples, given your extensive experience? What would you consider to be exploitative in the context of your work in Pune, for instance?
Yeah, we consider that there are exploitative practices in sex work. For example, brothel keeping. Like brothels. You, I hope you know the practice called adeli. Like half of the earnings goes to the brothel keeper. That is definitely exploitative practice. So we are advocating and we are using the collectivization process in order to get rid of that exploitative practice, and that result is quite visible in almost all places where the sex workers collectives are active. Even in Pune, I think Sutapa might have seen by herself. We used to have so many brothels owned by the brothel keepers, not owned, but in that way, but run by the brothel keepers, and they used to take half of the earnings. But now the trend has changed. Now women are actually taking the rooms on rent, and whatever they are earning, they are keeping it with themselves. There are many brothel keepers who are trying to start with the shift system. They are giving away with this half system now. So these things are happening. So what we mean by exploitative practice is this, half of the earnings going to the brothel keeper, money lending, giving money to sex workers with a huge interest. That was an exploitative practice that should go. And so we are advocating around that, and the shift is also visible. It's not that we are not claiming that everything has gone away. Exploitation is still there, but you know that minimization is definitely taking place, so things are changing. Apart from that, exploitation by the legal machinery, that's not going away. And exploitation and violence by police is so visible and so evident, that could become a common ground for the women's organizations and feminists and sex workers to come together. Because not only sex workers, but many women, especially from the marginalized communities and groups, they do face violence by police. So that can become a common ground for both groups to work together. So by exploitative practice, I mean prominently these three things, earnings and money lending and misuse by the law implementing agency. So
Okay, great. I think we are almost over time now. Thank you, Tejasvi, for this wonderful discussion. Really a lot to think about from whatever you have presented, and I'm sure this conversation will continue. And that you complete your PhD soon, and we are able to hear your complete thesis, and I'm sure it is turning out to be a very good and important piece of work. So really look forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
And I'm also using Prabha's work to a great extent as my reference for my work with my PhD. So yeah, thank
you.
you for that. I'm doing that. Reading it. Yes.
Improving it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shimanti, for joining. It is a real pleasure. And yeah, soon, yeah. So hopefully we'll meet soon someday as you come to Kolkata, and would love to hear more about your experience of Sonagachi. Have been reading your books and papers. So yeah, so definitely. Thank you. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
Okay.
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you so
Thank
much. Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Bye.
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 Bye.